Under sunny skies here in the Lone Star State, race number 8 in the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup brings us to the ultra-fast Texas Motor Speedway, where current points leader Jimmie Johnson hopes to repeat his winning performance from 1 year ago. NASCAR fans on their feet at Texas Motor Speedway. Oh, trouble on the racetrack, heavy contact.
Down.
Oh, skid off at turn 4. Trouble the 20 car, 38 involved. Harvey gets through.
Come on.
Everybody stacking up, getting sideways.
We're done, boys. Go. Get to the grass.
Here comes Jimmie Johnson on the bottom of the racetrack. Can he hang there?
Go get you some cowboy hats there, bud.
This is two of the best in the business going at it right here.
Johnson clears him with 2 laps to go. Jimmie Johnson has driven the wheels off his Chevy, and he will win at Texas Motor Speedway.
Hey, crew, you guys won this race. That fast pit stop, that's what did it. Jimmy, great driver there, buddy.
We welcome you to our ESPN coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Happy Hour or Final Practice from here in Texas. Take a look at our current point standings. Easy to see why everyone believes Jimmie Johnson is poised to tie history as only the second driver to ever win 3 consecutive titles. Although Carl Edwards sits 183 points back and starts 16th on Sunday, he is not about to concede the title just yet. For more on our 2 title contenders, here's Shannon Spade.
Well, Doc, earlier this week, Carl Edwards was asked his thoughts on possibly finishing second in both the Nationwide Series and the Cup Series. Carl's response? He wouldn't answer the question. He said, we still have 3 weeks left in this chase. 3 weeks is a very long time. Anything could happen. And while Carl Edwards certainly has the momentum from last week's race at Atlanta, his win in Atlanta, Jimmie Johnson is going to be very tough to beat. He's the only driver in the chase to finish in the top 10 in all of the chase races. Plus, he's a defending race winner here at Texas, so he certainly knows how to get to victory lane. Dave Burns?
Shannon at Hendrick Motorsports. It's all about repeating history here in 2008. And I'm not talking about Jimmie Johnson winning for a 3rd time the championship. I'm talking about the 24 car of Jeff Gordon winning it all this year. For 14 years straight, Jeff Gordon's won at least 2 races every season. And started in 1994. They're trying to keep that streak alive, and they've got a good shot at it. He sits on the pole for this weekend's race, was the fastest qualifier. This final practice session, once they get out there, will be important to tune it to race conditions. Doc?
Thanks, Dave. This could be a big weekend for Hendrick Motorsports. Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry Punch, along with Dale Jarrett and Andy Petrie. Glad to have you with us here for final practice at Texas. Everyone assumes that it is Jimmie Johnson's championship to lose. And, guys, the one thing he can ill afford not to have is a mechanical failure. So with that in mind, how much or how little does he run here today, knowing he's got to run 500 miles here with that engine tomorrow?
Well, I think it's important for this team to get their setup right. That'll keep them out of trouble tomorrow, and that's worth the slight risk it might be to put a few more miles on the engine. These things are designed to go quite a few miles. I think it's business as usual down there with this 48 team. I don't think that they're going to change anything right now.
This is certainly a difficult racetrack on the engine, so you want to make sure that when you are going out there to practice that you're maximizing that time and making the best effort that you can, not just throwing something at it small. Let's make a concerted effort to make sure that we're putting a number of changes in there at one time. So they want to keep the miles off, but they're not going to sacrifice that because these engine builders are really good. They're not going to sacrifice that just to make sure that they don't get too many miles on. They're going to say, okay, engine guys, it's up to you now. We've got you here, so take care of us from here on out.
They want to have a trouble-free happy hour. Now, we've already had a couple incidents today involving 2 cars in practice earlier about an hour and a half ago. Right front tire on the 7 car of Robbie Gordon down between turns 1 and 2. And then about 10 minutes later, former Texas winner and 2-time Cup champion Tony Stewart coming off of turn 2, an explosion in the right rear.
NASCAR went out there to clean the racetrack after this incident with Tony Stewart just to make sure there wasn't any debris still on the racetrack from the earlier one with Robbie Gordon. You see the backup car coming off the trailer for Tony Stewart.
They were ready to have this car back on the racetrack, and in less than 30 minutes now, this car back on the racetrack for this final practice session.
Yeah, that tire came apart. He never hit the wall or anything, but it blew the entire right rear quarter panel off of this race car. Dave?
DJ, had a chance to talk to crew chief Greg Zipadelli about it, and I said, did Goodyear confirm with you? Did he run over something? What happened? And he goes, Tony just said it went kaboom, and we don't have any further information right now on that. So they pulled out this backup car. Greg told me they raced it this year, early in the year, at Atlanta and here at Texas, and that car has been fairly good for him in a backup role and a testing role. So, but he felt a lot better about the car they wrecked, unfortunately.
Tony back out trying to get this car dialed in. Has a little less than an hour to try to get the setup set for race day. Now, what's Carl Edwards do today?
Today, he's just getting the car right. He knows the feel that he's looking for, and he's going to go out there, run a few laps or more than a few, come back and talk to his crew chief, Bob Osborne, and get that thing handling just like he wants. I think that's the neat thing about having a driver like Carl Edwards. He knows what he's looking for. You just have to give it to him.
Yeah, when you've won here before, you know that feeling that you're looking for and with these cars. And we see Carl working here inside the race car. Now, this is probably not quite as severe as last week at Atlanta as far as working the steering wheel, but these guys are still fighting for grip, and as this racetrack heats up, they're going to be looking for even more of that.
How much does this racetrack change over the course of a 500-mile race? I know there's a lot of grip here when you start, but how about at 300, 400 miles?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting oil down on the racetrack from cars. You're getting more rubber down. So you're actually losing some grip as this goes on. That's why you'll see these guys widen this racetrack out. They're going to be running a lot like Atlanta last week. They're going to be on the bottom, middle, and top before this is all over.
It's like Carl just taking his time in there compared to swatting flies in that cockpit a week ago at Atlanta.
He doesn't mind to work that steering wheel. He'll do it if he needs to. I'm sure he doesn't want to have to do that all day, but you can see right here, he's fighting it a little bit off turn 4.
Well, Carl knows that history is on his side because the last 3 years, a driver that won Atlanta in the fall also came here and won Texas. Jimmy Johnson did it, Tony Stewart, and Carl did it back in 2005.
Yeah, Carl's the only one that's going to pay attention to that stat. He doesn't. None of the other drivers care about that.
Here's Jimmy Johnson, and wow, what a performance at Atlanta in a supporting role, we should say. He finished second, but how he finished second was as impressive as anything I've seen in a long time. 8 laps to go, he was 11th, puts on 4 tires, and just picks them off one at a time to finish second.
Yeah, that seems to be what these guys do better than others, is they rebound from things happening to them. They don't, they stay calm and they make it the right calls and get themselves back in a position to get a good finish out of it.
And they're not afraid to make those calls. He had to give up a good track position to come in and make that pit stop. That just shows you how much confidence that Chad has in Jimmy and his ability to come through that traffic without having a problem.
Lots of motorsports action to come your way. NHRA action from Las Vegas coming up tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern time. NASCAR now tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Then our live flag-to-flag coverage of the Dickies 500 at Texas on ABC at 3 o'clock. NHRA action from Las Vegas, the National Finals, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. And NASCAR now will wrap up the day at 10 Eastern time on ESPN2. More with NASCAR Sprint Cup final practice in just a moment. Our coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Happy Hour is being brought to you by Phillips Norelco. Phillips, sense, and simplicity. Our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series pumpkin patch. By the way, that 20 pumpkin, that's a backup pumpkin for Tony Stewart. He's already had problems with the stem on that one. He had a tire issue in this final practice. And of course, that 48 pumpkin has made it pretty frightening here on Halloween weekend for all the other competition. Here's the 24 car. Jeff Gordon capturing his 67th career pole here in qualifying on Friday, but first ever at Texas Motor Speedway. He has never won a pole or a race at this track.
Yeah, this hasn't been the one that's been the most kind to Jeff Gordon, this racetrack, and you would think that it's a lot like a lot of other places that we go to, but he just hasn't had much success here yet.
See, 2 43rd place finishes, no wins. But he might change that this weekend. He's got a good car, a lot of confidence, and never had gotten a pole till yesterday. So he's done something he hasn't done before. Maybe continue that.
Slammed the wall, a turn 4 wall, very hard here back in April. Probably the hardest lick of his career when he hit here back in 1999. Shannon?
Jeff Gordon just went out for his practice session, final practice here. Yesterday, Jeff Gordon said he didn't really have the speed in the car that they necessarily were looking for, but they found something that they thought would work. They moved forward with it, and of course, they got the pole. Big week for Jeff Gordon, looking to win here, and of course at Homestead, and to get that first win of the season. Also, Jeff Gordon did say this week that there will not be a change on that crew chief box for the 24 team. But Steve Letarte, he is sticking by his guy. He's got a lot of faith in him, and he will be back next year.
I like Steve Letarte. I think he's done a great job over there. And every time I talk to him, it sounds like they're working on the right things in the right areas. They just haven't had the breaks. And they're just missing a little bit of something, but not a lot.
Yeah, and I think that'd be a pretty major step to make a change whenever they had so much success last year. And, you know, Steve Letarte's a young man that has a lot of talent, a lot of knowledge about this, and has a great race driver in Jeff Gordon. And, you know, let's give them a little bit more time, too. They obviously have performed well enough to get into the chase. Yeah, they haven't won yet, but that could change here this weekend.
One driver that's been done really well this year, particularly the last couple of mile-and-a-half tracks have been on, is this guy here, Jamie McMurray. And I spoke with Jamie this morning down in the garage area. He was very excited about the car they had here, coming off the 7th place finish at Atlanta last week, and then 5th at Charlotte 3 weeks ago.
He's had a lot going good for this team here last probably 10 races. It seems like every time you look up, somebody's coming, and it's usually this 26 car. See, he's missing a few decals from an earlier scrape with the wall.
Yeah, said that a number of times here. Guys are doing it yesterday, trying to get ready to qualify, and it's happening here in practice. This racetrack is very, very fast, and so in these corners, they flatten out so quickly. You go from banking to just a flat surface of the straightaway so quickly that it just throws you towards the wall. So if you don't have your car totally under control, front or back, as you exit that corner right at that point right there that Jamie was, then you got a good chance of making contact with the wall.
Let's update the 07 Clint Boyer. Dave?
And his comments, Doc, when he came into the garage area, pretty good. Starts out hitting the splitter a little bit hard, but then gets better as the air pressures increase. And DJ, maybe here's something that you can speak to. This is the best indication for Clint Boyer. His crew chief, Gil Martin, told me once, if he'll go out and run a series of laps right at the beginning of practice. He doesn't want to come right back in, doesn't want to change stuff. And he went out and he ran 16 straight laps, so that's pretty good.
That'll give you a trend of where the car's going, Dave. That's why you want to do that. You want to, if it starts out a little bit loose and he comes in too early, it maybe doesn't have enough time to come in. So you want to run enough laps so you know what the trend is of the chassis, where it's going.
Yeah. I think I've said this before. Robert Yates used to always say, okay, we need to run 17 laps. I have no idea where he came up with that number, but it didn't matter if we were on a half-mile track or a mile and a half. We had to run 17 laps. So that's what was going to tell us. Did you have to count them,
or did they tell you when to come in?
They told me when to come in.
And since he was the guy whose name was on the bottom of your check, you ran 17 laps.
Absolutely.
Speaking of 17, here's Matt Kenseth. he's my pick. He's my pick for Sunday's race. He's great here at this racetrack.
Really is. Matt works hard to get his car to run right there where you see him now, right on the white line, and getting that car to turn and roll through the center, and really makes a lot of straightaway speed because in getting it to turn, he's able to get a lot of speed on the exit of the corner.
Matt Kenseth, you mentioned, has been very good at this racetrack. Has a brand new car here this weekend. And in fact, you know, he's one of the guys here that is yet to win, one of the chase drivers yet to win in 2008. Matt, 33 races to go, Homestead a year ago. But remember, this was when he won at Texas. 2002, he led 85 laps. And Matt Kenseth, for the first time, able to go to victory lane and get that big old cowboy hat as a winner at Texas. Sunrise over Central Texas. Boy, what beautiful country this is. No wonder the Texans are so proud of what they got here. Wide open country. Wide open racetracks. Texas Motor Speedway, where the NASCAR Sprint Cup stars have come for the 8th race in the chase. There have been 13 different winners in 15 Cup races, 5 different in the last 5 times they have come here. The only repeat winners, Carl Edwards and Jeff Burton, and oh my, how much would Carl Edwards like to win this one here and try to inch a little closer with just 2 more races remaining and this year's title chase. Great place to make a debut for NASCAR Sprint Cup driver. Brad Keselowski will do just that this weekend in the car number 25 out of the Hendrick stable.
I think this young man's going to find these Cup cars are a little bit different to drive than those Nationwide Series cars.
I promise you, they're different to drive. Yeah, you see him
He's got a lot of
Out
talent.
the gas. Yeah, he does have a lot of talent. Very good race driver.
He's going to be fine, but it's just going to be an adjustment period. You see him over flipping a few switches, going down the straightaway. He's busy in there.
He's got a lot going on.
Sawing the wheel. I think he's got a bright future, but this is definitely going to be a transition for him coming into this series. You can see these cars are not stuck to the racetrack at all like those Nationwide Series cars are.
I found it interesting as we've watched the in-car cameras of these drivers with this car now, how drivers have changed the position of their hands in driving this race car. And it's totally different. And even drivers that used to do it different. Now, I haven't watched Brad that much in his Nationwide car, but I've just seen that they've had to get a different grip to make it all work and get these cars around the racetrack.
Look at Jimmy Johnson. He's got one hand up on top of the wheel.
Yeah, that's more kind of what you kind of want. You like to have a little bit of wheel, especially when you're in the corner. We see so many of these guys turning right as they get there. You see Jimmy's doing mostly turning left as he's in the corner here. As he starts to exit out of the corner, we can see him start releasing that wheel and back to the right and straighten out here. This was. It really works on you. I can assure you these guys are finding this a lot more stressful in their hands and their forearms in driving these cars.
Yeah, and that steering wheel you see right there, that's a new steering wheel for them. They've had it for, 5, 6, 7 races, I think, maybe up to 10 races this year, but that's a different steering wheel than the traditional wheel you see in the garage area. It's got a different material on it, and it's something they developed for comfort for Jimmy Johnson. I've talked to the guy that does all that for them, and they've developed a nice little wheel.
Here's Juan Pablo Montoya. His best finish here in racing. He's had some good runs here in Texas and had a great run going at Atlanta last week until late in the race when he became a victim on pit road and then later in the big one on the racetrack.
Yeah, he's really the first guy that we've seen in either one of these practice sessions that's kind of moved up the racetrack some here. The track is still not very wide for these guys, but especially in 1 and 2, they're starting to get more of it. And Juan Pablo has been there. There comes Dale Jr. as we see. Just as we start to talk about it, he's up on the racetrack a lot more. So this will be his first venture up towards the top side of the track where there's not much rubber down right now.
It's a little more difficult to run that extremely high line at Texas versus, say, Atlanta.
Yeah, it really is, because at Atlanta there's no grip anywhere, so you just go on up there and start making things happen there. But it is faster around the bottom here at the beginning, but you're eventually going to have to move up the racetrack some, and as we see Dale Jr. doing right here. But when nobody's ventured up there, you've just got a totally green racetrack.
He's set on the pole here back in April and will start 5th here on Sunday. Dave.
And they have made some changes on this race car. His biggest complaint was going through the bumps on this racetrack. The car would hit the track and would upset it, make it really, really tight. So they made a right front spring change. They made a track bar adjustment and a right front shock as well. These were Junior's comments about the car.
It's still hitting the ground. I don't know if it's hitting the ground or not. It's hard to feel whether it's hitting the ground or not. It's just bouncing and pushes up off the bottom. Bump it. Gets super tight, pushes up off the bottom. Lower the track bar 2 notches in the rear. I'm going to take the rebound out of the right front. The splitter didn't hit the ground that time. Must be on the bump stop there. I'm sure, yeah, it's on the bump stop now because I just had to put an 1/8 in it, so it's going to engage harder. Put some spring in it. Get it up off the bump stop.
And of course, what you were hearing was the work following those first adjustments I talked about. Now he's taking it on that one run. We'll bring it back in, and we'll see if they've got it right.
What we're talking about here, folks, we put these wear indicators right here at the splitter. That tells us how far we are off the racetrack. But what he's talking about when he's talking about putting 1/8 of an inch in to keep the thing, it's about this much that they're going to put on the shaft right there. But when they go to the coil spring, what they're trying to do is actually slow the rate down that the thing gets down on the bump stop. But as you can see with the deflection right here, it's pretty solid. But this rubber right here, it's pretty forgiving as far as being real abrupt getting down on the spring.
So thank you, Tim. A lot of minor adjustments to be able to slow how quickly you do get to the bump stop.
That's why it's so difficult to get this car right. You see how many different variations there can be in the setup. I mean, you can do a lot of things with bump stops. You can do it with springs. You can do it with shocks. I mean, there's just so many things. But the limiting factor is the height of that splitter off the ground. NASCAR regulates that very specifically.
This is a backup car. Do not adjust your set at home because earlier today, Robbie Gordon was in a different colored car in the Menards sponsored car that was primarily white, yellow, and blue. But the right front tire let go. So they had to go to the garage area and quickly bring out the backup car, which is the one he's on the racetrack with now, trying to get it dialed in. This is the car, of course, he will race on Sunday. Texas native Bobby Labonte on the racetrack in the 43 car, a two-time pole sitter. Has had some very good runs here. And unlike his brother Texas Terry, Bobby has not won at this racetrack, the home track. Would love to be able to get that stat changed here on Sunday.
There's Kyle Busch going by him right there. Kyle's been pretty quick. He's second quick, as a matter of fact, in this practice session. He's getting things dialed in better.
He's got 22 laps on the board recorded so far, so they're working on their long run setups. And looks like he's still really good. See him just making the pass right there and going on.
Coming off that top 5 finish at Atlanta last week. And of course, Kyle, 2 top 5s in the last 3 starts in the chase. So they're starting to come back to get to the form that they were earlier in the year. And let's, speaking of Kyle Busch, let's find out who knows the driver better.
Time to find out who knows me better. I bet it's Mom, but it could be Jeff. What is my favorite saying?
Get her done.
It's "you're an idiot." That's it. The one most often used is you're an idiot, and that's to Jeff. If I was an action hero or a superhero, who would I be?
Superman.
The Joker. I'd be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Come on. What is the first car I ever owned?
I think it was an S10.
I want to say it's like a Silverado or something. See, Mom got it right on the head. Jeff, he doesn't know cars. Who is my favorite actress?
Oh, that's easy. Sandra Bullock.
Angelina Jolie. My favorite actress is probably Sandra Bullock. Well, it looks like the mother's instinct is always right. She knows me better. But Jeff, he spends the most time with me, so why was he so wrong?
Final practice session coverage continuing here for Texas Motor Speedway. Next time these guys will be on the racetrack, they'll be taking the green flag. Race number 8 in the chase. Here's the 28 car. Travis Quapple. And he's had a little bit of a contact earlier in the day. Right side of that car got a few scrapes on it.
He missed some practice time in the first practice session to repair it. He didn't get a lot of laps. Actually, I don't think he even showed a lap on the board. I don't know how he got damaged. It must happen right away.
Travis says this is his favorite racetrack. He collected his very first major NASCAR win here in the Truck Series back in 2001. And they have brought a brand new race car here from Yates Racing. Here's the 84 car, Scott Speed.
Yeah, Scott out here trying to get as many laps as he can in this car on this track. He has some laps on the track in the Truck Series, but this is a totally different animal in trying to drive this car with this horsepower around here. So he's doing a good job, just taking his time, working up to speed. He's in 28th right now.
His teammate also coming out on the racetrack, and the 83 car, Brian Vickers. Brian has had some really good runs, had some misfortune the last few weeks, got a lap penalty at Atlanta last weekend for servicing the car outside the pit box. Otherwise, they probably would have had at least a top 7, if not top 5 finish. Dave.
And Doc, today the team told me that they had found a setup they were comfortable with, but we're going to try a couple of things. One of those may have paid off. Brian said the run before leaving the garage here, it was through the center off was better. It was more forgiving and had more drive off, so that's a very good thing. One other interesting observation from the driver earlier, he was talking with his spotter, Chris Lambert, about the 44 car of Rudeman, who had run quickly, at least for one lap, and was running the high line. They discussed it, and then Brian ended the conversation by saying, but we need to be on that white line to win the race. Fairly confident with the race car, knowing it has to work on the bottom of the track.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave. That's exactly right. That's where you need to make your car work first. I think that if you can make it work down there and you have to move up the racetrack then as things change, it's a lot easier to do that. If you set it up for the top side of the racetrack, I don't know that you can ever get it back to the bottom and have a good race car.
That's the problem. You can't set it up to run right next to the wall. That's an option for the driver, but it's not something you want to plan to do because, like you said, you just have nowhere to go from there.
Different crew chief on this car. The suspension of his crew chief after the incident following Martinsville and the random post-race inspection where the sheet metal was a little bit too thin. So, Andy, that's got to make things a little tough in terms of being able to get communications done here in the final few races.
And especially with the momentum this team has been building. They have had some really good runs and on the verge of some great things, and I still think they are. They're building a really nice organization over there. But that'll definitely set you back when you lose your crew chief.
Yeah, if they're running well here. He's 6th quickest on the board, and his laps look good. He's got 21 laps out there and still running just over the 31-second bracket. So running exceptionally well here today.
When you talk about running exceptionally well, maybe the surprise of the weekend has been how well Marcos Ambrose has run in this 47 car. He was in the top 5 in practice yesterday. Didn't qualify as well as he would have liked, but has really adapted well to this new car in running only, 8 races in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series.
Yeah, he's doing a nice job. They had a nice practice yesterday, a good effort, and got themselves into the race. And I'm sure that last night our colleague Brad Daugherty sat him down and told him exactly what he's supposed to be doing in these practices today and set him straight there. And Marcus is listening to everything that Brad told him as a driver and owner.
He said, look here, now when I go to Tri-County, here's what I do. I put a couple extra rounds. I hope Marcus knows enough not to listen to Brad. 15 car, here is Paul Menard. And this, he has run well, and the whole DEI organization these last 8 or 9 races have really stepped it up. There's a lot of people, a lot of speculation that DEI could be in trouble because of Paul leaving and Menard's team, of course, and Mark Martin going away. But you got to give this whole organization credit. They have stepped it up from their engine program in combination with Richard Childress, but the race cars, everything they have done to show people that they are certainly a force to contend with here during the final few events.
And they're not acting like a typical lame duck type situation. I mean, all the guys, everybody working on the car, and Paul's doing all he can do. And this is one of the best racetracks for Paul. I brought him here in a Nationwide Series car for that season. I think it was 2004. He had a great run here. We finished in the top 10, and he's a pretty good driver here. Actually, I think he finished top 15. That was early on in his Busch Series career at the time.
Yeah, well, he's doing a nice job. Had a good day yesterday and looking good today.
Here's a 24-car pole sitter, Jeff Gordon. Now, yesterday there was no one faster than Gordon in qualifying. Today, however, in happy hour, he right now is 32nd on the speed charts, and they are really struggling. Let's listen in.
I don't know how you're supposed to adjust the car. You know, as soon as you go back out on tires, the thing is completely junk. I'm just pushing like crazy. All that we had 1 and 2 gone. I mean, it won't turn at 1 and 2 at all now.
I'm a little frustrated there with the situation that Jeff's talking about. After being out on tires and putting some laps on the tires. They got out late in this session, and Andy, we've talked about this before, that it's really hard to lay down a pretty decent lap, but he's not happy that after he went back out for the second time that he did not have the front end grip that he needed to make a good lap.
Particularly the track like this, guys, where he has had just abysmal luck over the years. Got to believe he's thinking, you know, I want to get this car as good as I can get it, you know, and be able to just to run comfortably, run for 500 miles. Don't have to be the fastest car here, but I don't want to be out here just fighting to hang on because of the hard lick he took here back in the spring. One of the cars that is really dialed in pretty well right now is this 18 car, Dave.
And Doc, they're trying to replay some of that early season magic they had with this team, including a 3rd place run here at the Texas Motor Speedway earlier this year. Right now, Kyle says the car is pretty good, but I'm in a, quote, tight, loose situation. I could use a little more help in the center, but I'm right at the balance of going too fast. So they've changed the front sway bar on that car. We'll see what that does for Kyle, but for average lap times throughout this session, he's doing very well near the top of that list.
He is 2nd overall in this session in terms of speed, right behind Carl Edwards. And as you mentioned it, trying to get that magic back. 1.5 mile tracks have been pretty good for Kyle Busch this year. 2 poles, 2 wins, pretty good average finish. So maybe they'll get that magic back this weekend here in the Lone Star State and take that Toyota to victory lane. Just 3 races remain in the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup, and we invite you to join us here, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. The Dickies 500 at Texas. Live flag-to-flag coverage on ABC, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. Alan Beswick, Brad Doherty, Rusty Wallace. It was Carl Edwards who led 107 consecutive laps in April. Jimmy Johnson finished second. Can Carl get it done here on Sunday and inch a little closer to Jimmy Johnson? Carl is atop the speed charts here at Happy Hour right now. There's Kyle and Kurt, the Busch brothers. Clint Boyer, another chaser, back in 5th spot. And you do not see Jimmy Johnson in the top 10. He is actually 12th overall in speed. It's all about getting experience on this mile-and-a-half racetrack. And this 77 car, Sam Hornish, just out there for a long time, I guess, DJ, just trying to get more and more laps, in spite of the fact that he's had a few near misses here in the last few minutes.
If you're going to stay out there and run on tires, you're going to have situations like this.
Yeah, that's an experience.
Yes, it is. I'm impressed that he's still out there after that. I think I would have pitted for a little bit. Made some adjustments, but he's been battling, and that's what Sam has to do. He has to find that edge. He doesn't know that on these cars. You know, he could run wide open around here in Indy cars, but these are a lot different. Shannon?
Well, guys, he has been working on that car all practice, and as you could see from that video, he's complaining about the car being loose all practice long. They've been throwing some stuff at it, just haven't been able to tighten it up for Sam Hornish Jr.
Just saying it's loose and then trying to fix that with his new cars. Difficult, isn't it?
Difficult. That's what a lot of teams are fighting. And the one problem is the characteristics of this car is to be looser aerodynamically. And so it really almost needs a little bit different weight distribution. It needs a little more weight on the front wheels. But the problem is there's not enough ballast in the frame of these cars because the car is so heavy overall that the teams are really kind of handcuffed on how much they can actually shift that center of gravity, so to speak, from front or the rear to the front. That's why you see so many loose race cars.
Ryan Newman on the racetrack had a top 5 finish here back in the spring. Here's a 31 car. One of only 2 drivers with multiple victories at this racetrack. In fact, Jeff's very first win came here at Texas Motor Speedway. Now, you Jeff Burton fans know what I'm about to say, but don't worry about where he started. Just ignore where it says starting 38, because when the day is done, I got to believe Jeff Burton's going to be in the top 10, if not the top 5.
Yeah, he's one that's going to be really glad when this racetrack's going to widen out and cars start handling bad. He's going to be a lot better off.
Here's a group running together here during the final practice. Montoya, the 42, Harvick, the 29.
There's a little race going on right here. And this is a good way to practice also. You want to practice around traffic and put yourself in some situations like you're going to be in during the race. That's one reason a lot of guys have problems when the race starts, is they haven't really practiced in a lot of traffic. And once the race starts, it's all traffic.
Isn't it amazing how we don't see that much anymore it happening? You used to have guys that went out and they intended. I mean, when you were with Earnhardt, he wanted to be in a pack of cars, and we did that a lot then, but you just don't see these guys getting out there in that situation very much, and then they act like they're surprised when they get in the race that their car drives different.
Well, one reason is they drive so bad in traffic. They don't want to do that too long.
Kevin Harvick, a 4-time winner here in the Nationwide car, has never won here in the Cup car. Behind Harvick is the 96 of Kenny Schrader. There's the Schrader car. Schrader was very good in practice yesterday here for the Texas-based sponsor and race team.
He set the early pace in practice yesterday and stayed up on top of the board for a while. Qualified pretty decent. And these mile-and-a-half tracks haven't been the best for Kenny Schrader. He's probably the best on super speedways and short tracks and 1-mile racetracks, but he's pretty good everywhere, really.
Yeah, he's just a good, solid race driver and still can get it done.
Makes a pass on Harvick.
Kenny will make his 731st career start here on Sunday. 4 times he has gone to victory lane, 23 poles.
If we asked Kenny about that, what that meant to him, he'd say that he's old. That's all that would mean. Nothing else.
He's 53, and that's not old anymore.
No.
Here's the 24 car. Let's see if you heard what Jeff was saying about how they couldn't get the car to turn in turns 1 and 2, and it was basically junk. See if they've improved it a little bit.
Well, it's really hard to tell when you're tracking lap times because just like we heard Jeff say in the garage, it's just so hard after you run some laps on tires to really tell what the car's doing and even to look at it on these lap times. These teams have sophisticated programs where they go back and look at all the lap times and how they stack up with each other. They call it a lap tracker. You'll hear drivers and crew chiefs talking about it. And so it has, they basically have to use a computer to analyze these laps. It's hard to tell just right now where you are.
Yeah. Looks like he might still be fighting a little bit of tightness right in the center of the corner. And, of course, you could solve his problem for a couple of laps by throwing on another set of tires, but you're not going to be able to do that all day tomorrow. So they have to really work on this thing and see if they can make that feel better for him. Shannon?
That's exactly. It's still tight for the 2014, but I just went and asked the team if they're surprised, considering how well they ran yesterday in qualifying. And they just looked at me and they said, this place is a lot like Atlanta. It just changes so much. So, DJ, maybe you can talk a little bit about how much this racetrack changes from the day and night and day to day.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Shannon. And what they're talking about, basically, this racetrack has gotten older. We talk about it having more grip than Atlanta, and it probably still does have a little bit more than that. It's not worn that much. But when you get here, you untake the front end and do all the things that you need to do to race well, then you find out that you just don't have a lot of grip with this new car on this particular racetrack. So that's what they're going to fight. If they fought that last week, they're going to have a tough time with it again this week. So that's what they're going to be battling and trying to work for, and just to make Jeff happy and get that car to where he feels like that, okay, I can race this right here and we're not giving up too much speed.
He must be not totally satisfied yet, as he will bring it on the pit road and make another adjustment. We'll take a break while he takes a break and come back with the final moments of Happy Hour. Back at Texas Motor Speedway, continuing with coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Happy Hour here in Fort Worth, Texas. Remember, this is the fastest race car in all of NASCAR since we used restrictor plates to limit horsepower at Daytona and Talladega. The pole here back in April by Dale Earnhardt Jr. was the fastest lap of the year in any qualifying. And, of course, the one here yesterday in October by Jeff Gordon, the third fastest overall. And so when you have trouble at a track with this kind of speed, it can get ugly in a hurry, as our Tim Brewer explains.
Back at the first of the year, during a qualifying run here at Texas Motor Speedway, seen one of the most devastating accidents we've ever seen. Michael McDowell actually hit the wall head-on going into the corner, probably over 200 miles an hour. What he did, when he initially went in the corner, lost the car, went straight into the wall. As you can see, the wall actually deflected back. That absorbed a lot of the energy. What happened then is he came off the wall, started tumbling. That's when the car literally hit the ground with the side of the car. The foam here actually absorbed more of the energy. But after the car started rolling again, the reliability of the seat, the head restraints, the shoulder harnesses, actually keeping the guy contained in the seat. That was a big effort there. But what also was a good contributing factor of saving the guy was the actual Hans device and the helmet. Because anytime he stayed confined in the seat area right here, it doesn't let his head bounce around, and it was very, very violent. But the Hans device and all the safety equipment that NASCAR has implemented, that's the reason Michael walked away from that wreck.
I was standing on pit road and watched that. There's the safer barrier. Now, you saw that barrier just compress and absorb the energy. Now, let's watch this one more time and listen to how violent this impact sounds. The safer barrier, the Hans device. Well, if I'm Michael McDowell, I am writing to every one of those people saying thank you for the Hans device and for the safe seat and the crush zones in this new car that NASCAR has developed. I mean, wow.
And that safer barrier we're looking at. That is just an amazing innovation, really, that we've come up with, and it's taken a ton of the impact energy out of these real savage accidents we've seen.
Yeah, certainly since 2001, we've made just huge progress in all of those areas that Tim was talking about there. So, you know, we can talk about this car and some of the things that we don't like about it at times, the drivability of it, but you cannot at any time question the safety aspects that were put into this race car and the other things that NASCAR has implemented into our sport to help these drivers to walk away from situations like that.
Certainly kudos to NASCAR and their entire safety team. Here's the 0-1 car of Regan Smith, who was the leader in the NASCAR Robustus Rookie of the Year point standings until last week. And now he is currently sitting in second spot in the points, 2 points back of Sam Hornish Jr. In fact, Sam has been the leading Rookie of the Year contender finisher in the last 3 consecutive races. Just joined our coverage in the practice session prior to this one here today. The 20 car of Tony Stewart had a problem with the right rear tire coming off of turn 2. And we're going to show you that the tire just explodes. He apparently cut something, but it just comes apart.
No warning whatsoever, and it just completely explodes the quarter panel off the car. It's a good thing he was on the straightaway, because wouldn't have had much control of that in the corner.
And they've had to roll out the backup car, and they've been working diligently, Dave, to get this car dialed in.
And you know how it is, Doc. They try to build them all the same so that when you roll out the backup, it's identical, as Tony now heads back toward the garage area. But there are always some little differences. The crew confirmed with you they've gotten Tony comfortable in this race car, just going after a little speed right now. And comfort included getting some things tied down in that car that were just a little bit different. Had some things flopping around on the right side in the interior of that car. And interior guy, Scott Gertz, Grady they call him, got inside there and tied some more stuff down so that it wasn't bug and smoke as he raced on the racetrack. They've gotten him fairly close and hope that it'll be a, as he comes right to our camera right here, a good 20 race car tomorrow, guys.
We'll also have another Home Depot car with reverse paint scheme. It'll be the 18-year-old Joey Logano. He made the field here for his 3rd career NASCAR Sprint Cup start. Lots of changes headed our way for 2009. Logano, will he be in the 20 car in 09 after being impressive just from the get-go in the NASCAR Nationwide Series? See Rudimond number change. Mears going to the 07. Martin going to the 5 full-time. Boyer over to the 33. David Strimmy to Penske.
I'm just glad we don't pick this series up until midway through so we can learn all of these guys.
Yeah, we get a program or two.
It'll take me half a year to figure out who's in what seat. Back in a moment. Update our weekend schedule coming your way. We head out to Las Vegas later tonight, 10 Eastern time for NHRA Nationals qualifying. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. NASCAR Now will kick off our coverage, and then live flag to flag. Jeff Gordon will lead them with a green flag for the Dickies 500 in Texas on ABC 3 o'clock Eastern time. NHRA Finals at 7 o'clock Eastern Sunday night. And, of course, NASCAR Now wrapping up all the action of the day on ESPN2 at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Here is the 99 car back on the racetrack. Carl Edwards, one of the first cars to go out. He's at the top of the speed charts. And, guys, it's what you were talking about.
Yeah, they ran their fastest lap on lap 1. That's just a sign of the tires. The tires just go away so fast. And to make a fast lap in these practice sessions, you have to be in that very first wave going on the racetrack also.
We can see how much that they slow down here. And we saw a lot of this last week at Atlanta. Very same thing. Over 3 seconds last week that they were slowing down. Shannon?
Talking about those tires falling off, it's right about 10 laps. I was watching the speed chart, and 10 laps is exactly what Carl Edwards just did. He was the fastest car on the track right until about lap 9 or 10. But guys, he's been fast this entire practice, and they still have been working on that 99. They made a track bar adjustment when they came into the garage last time. And I spoke with Carl Edwards' crew chief on the nationwide side today, Drew Blickensturfer. He told me that Carl has a focus, a little bit of a pep in his step coming off of last weekend, and this guy is ready to get it done here this weekend.
It's hard not to be pumped up after you win both races. You won the Nationwide Series race and the Cup race.
Yeah, jump on a jet and go around the country and everything. We were talking about Brian Vickers earlier, but he may be having a few problems, Dave.
Yeah, DJ, his ears are telling him, and maybe the feel of the race car too, that he might have a motor issue. He reported that to his crew. Just didn't sound the same to him. Checked with Randy Cox, who's a crew chief on this car, and he said, we may have something we're going to have to look at during our after practice here. There might be something going on. We just don't know yet, and that'd be disappointing. They were running very strong in this practice session.
Yeah, their last few laps have been quite a bit slower than what they were running in practice earlier, so they may have an issue there.
Here's Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. Bill Elliott, the 21 car. Didn't really get a chance to show what he could do in Atlanta, involved in an incident in the early laps on the backstretch. Wood Brothers and Bill both hopeful to have a good run here at Texas on Sunday. The 9 car I've never seen Casey Kane have a car like he had at Atlanta and struggle as much as he did 1 week ago.
Kind of carried over here, too. He's only 30th fastest right now in the speed charts. This is his kind of racetrack, too. These mile and a halves have been right in his wheelhouse.
This car has been good for the entire session. Kurt Busch has got one quick dodge.
Yeah, and they ran well last week at Atlanta. It was very impressive what they've done. They've really worked hard in making this program a lot better than what they were at the beginning and early part of the season. So nice to see Kurt running better.
There's the red and black. That's the end of the practice session.
Carl Edwards in the garage area. He will be shown as the fastest car in happy hour. Now with 3 races to go in the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup, here are the point standings and where these guys will start on Sunday. You see Jimmy Johnson 7th, Edwards back in 16th spot. Jeff Gordon still looking for that first win in 2008. Will lead him down from the pole at Texas Motor Speedway. Will Jimmy Johnson be able to move away? He won this race a year ago, or will cousin Carl do what he did last week in Atlanta and here in April? We invite you to join us 3 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday for live coverage on ABC. So long, everyone, from Texas Motor Speedway.